So she did. Backyard mats, YouTube tutorials, underground fights for grocery money, and one day she fought her way into an amateur circuit where a scout saw her and said, "Damn, who trained you?" Katrina had smiled. Pain did. Have you ever had to create your own path because no one would open a door for you? Now that same pain was her weapon. Meanwhile, Tessa partied. That night, she celebrated with her team. "I already won," she laughed, scrolling through Twitter comments. Mocking Katrina. "Look at her face when I refused the handshake. Priceless," a coach warned her. "She's dangerous, don't let your mouth write checks your fists can't cash." Tessa rolled her eyes. "She's a soft story, a charity case with muscles," but not everyone around her laughed. A young woman on her media team, Natalie, a biracial intern, stood quietly in the corner, ashamed. She had grown up watching Katrina rise. She wanted to say something, to walk out in protest, but fear gripped. Her job, her career, her future. It was on the line. If you were in Natalie's shoes, would you speak up or stay silent in a room full of power? Transition. Night before the fight, Katrina sat on her hotel bed, her eyes closed, earbuds in. She wasn't listening to music. She was playing back the sound of her mother's voice from a saved voicemail. "If you're hearing this, it means you've made it. But baby, don't just win the fight. Win their hearts, make them feel you." Her mother had died the year Katrina signed her first UFC contract. Cancer had taken her before she ever saw her daughter enter the cage. Now, every fight, Katrina carried her. She opened her eyes, looked into the mirror and whispered, "Let them feel me." Early the next morning, a crew member knocked on her door. "We're ready to escort you to the arena, Miss Moore." She stood, zipped up her gear bag and nodded. In a different hotel across the strip, Tessa was still asleep when her manager barged in. "Wake up, Katrina's trending." Again, Tessa blinked. "Why?" Her manager turned the screen. Even celebrities were posting. Former fighters, activists, musicians, athletes. A movement had started, and Tessa was at the center of. The wrong side, her face paled. "Let's go," she muttered. "I'll handle it in the cage." But deep down, a fear she'd never known began to settle in. Because disrespecting Katrina Moore wasn't just about a handshake anymore. It was about a reckoning. When the whole world starts watching, will you rise under pressure or crumble? Beneath it, the roar of the arena was deafening. Every seat was taken, every eye fixated on one thing, the fight between Katrina Moore and Tessa Cross. But this wasn't just a UFC bout anymore. It had become a cultural moment. The lights dimmed. Spotlights crisscrossed as the announcer's voice echoed, "Now entering the octagon, Katrina." The machine Moore. Katrina walked down the aisle slowly, her face carved from stone. No smile, no theatrics, just focus. Her cornrows gleamed. Under the lights, and the words on the back of her robe shimmered with each step. "Built, not bought." The crowd surged with energy. Chants broke out. "Katrina! Katrina!" Phones lit up like stars. Even those who hadn't known her name a week ago now screamed it like she was a legend. But she didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed forward, her steps steady. She entered the cage. Then came Tessa's walkout. Flashy. Loud. Music. Neon strobes. She wore a custom robe and shades, acting like the hero of her own movie. But this time, the crowd didn't cheer. They booed. The switch had happened. Public opinion had turned, and Tessa could feel it. Question for the audience. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift against you? Like you weren't welcome anymore? She looked rattled. Not much, but enough. Inside the cage, they met the ref. Final instructions. Touch gloves. Katrina raised her fist again. This time. Tessa hesitated. For half a second, she reached out, but Katrina pulled her glove back. Not this time. The bell rang. Tessa opened aggressively, throwing quick jabs, low kicks, a spinning elbow. She was fast, dangerous. But Katrina? Katrina was deliberate. She didn't waste energy. She slipped, blocked, and countered with body shots that echoed like a drum against flesh. Tessa smirked. "You're slow." Katrina didn't answer. She moved. Like water, fluid, precise. Not flashy, but effective. In the final seconds of the first round, Katrina landed a clean right hook to Tessa's jaw. The crowd gasped. Tessa stumbled, but stayed up. The bell rang. Back to corners. Tessa's coach barked, "You're letting her get in your head." Tessa wiped blood from her lip. "I'm fine, she's all hype." In Katrina's corner, her coach leaned in. "She's cracking. Stay calm. Let her fall." Katrina nodded. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She wasn't here to just win. She was here to teach. When someone doubts your strength, do you let anger drive you, or stay patient and let the truth speak through action? Round 2. Tessa came out wilder, sloppy. Rage made her fast, but Katrina's calm made her dangerous. She ducked under a wild hook and landed an uppercut that rocked Tessa back. Another body shot, another leg kick. The arena chanted again, "Katrina! Katrina!" Tessa's pride bled with every hit. Mid-round, Katrina cornered her against the cage. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Could this be it? But Katrina stepped back. Let her out. Tessa looked confused, stumbled forward. Katrina had chosen not to finish her. Not yet. She wanted her to feel it. Flashbacks played in Katrina's mind, even as she moved. Memories of being ignored. In gyms, taunted by male fighters, laughed at by promoters. They'd called her too slow, or too emotional, and too black to market. Now here she was, main stage, holding back because she was in control. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory again. "Don't just beat them, make them remember you." The bell rang. End of round 2. Tessa dropped onto her stool, breathing hard. Her eyes swelling, her arrogance melting. She looked across the cage and Katrina stared back, unshaken, unbothered. How do you deal with someone who once mocked you, now forced to respect you? Round 3. The energy had shifted completely. Katrina now danced, light on her feet, in rhythm. She peppered Tessa with low kicks, jabs, and feints that kept her guessing. Tessa's face showed doubt. For the first time, fear. Commentators couldn't believe it. Tessa Cross is breaking down in front of us. Katrina Moore is putting on a masterclass. Then a spinning back fist caught Tessa flush. Her legs buckled. She hit the mat. The crowd exploded. But Katrina didn't jump in for ground and pound. She stepped back, raised her hand. Tessa wobbled to her feet, dazed, and Katrina whispered just loud enough for cameras to catch it. "You want to finish this on your feet like a fighter, or crawl out like a coward?" Tessa charged, desperate, fists flailing. Katrina ducked. One clean left hook. Boom! Tessa dropped again. This time, she didn't get up. The ref waved it off. Katrina Moore, winner by knockout. The arena roared, but Katrina didn't celebrate. She knelt beside Tessa, checked if she was okay, helped her sit up. Respect, even when it hadn't been returned. Can you still show compassion to someone who once humiliated you in public? Post-fight interview. The mic was handed to Katrina. She paused, looked at the camera. "I'm not just a fighter. I'm a reminder that you don't get to speak on someone's worth because of how they look or where they're from." She looked to the crowd. And for every girl watching who's ever been disrespected, overlooked, underestimated, this win is yours too. The video of the knockout hit 4 million views before midnight. Twitter flooded. Instagram exploded. Even TikTok had a remix of Katrina's knockout with a gospel choir singing in the background. News anchors called it one of the most powerful moments in UFC history. But what shook people most wasn't the punch. It was what happened after. The image of Katrina kneeling beside her opponent, helping her sit up, went viral. One post read, "This is grace. This is what it means to win with dignity." The comment section turned into a movement. She didn't just win a fight, she won the world's respect. Black excellence, poise, and power. You can't teach this kind of class. Meanwhile, in a quiet hospital room in Las Vegas, Tessa Cross sat on a bed, a bruise forming under her eye and an IV in her arm. Her team surrounded her, but no one said a word. For the first time in her career, no one had an excuse to offer. No one said, "You'll get her next time." No one blamed the ref. They all knew. She wasn't just beaten, she was humbled. Have you ever had to sit with a loss so heavy you couldn't explain it away? Tessa scrolled her phone, watching clips she couldn't avoid, Katrina helping her up. Katrina's calm words in the post-fight interview. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I was wrong." But the internet didn't wait for apologies. Articles poured in. Tessa Cross faces backlash after disrespectful comment. Katrina Moore breaks barriers with class and power. The UFC has a new face of strength and grace. Even the UFC president Dana White tweeted, "Katrina Moore just put on a masterclass, in and outside the cage, huge respect." Sponsors began pulling away from Tessa. Endorsements went quiet. Emails came in from PR reps urging damage control, and somewhere deep in her gut, Tessa realized this wasn't about saving face anymore. This was about becoming better. That night, in the quiet of her hotel room, Katrina sat by herself, eating a late dinner. Her sister Layla was on FaceTime, nearly sobbing from pride. "You made her eat every word, sis," Layla said. Katrina smiled, chewing slowly. "I didn't need her to eat them. I needed the world to hear them first." Suddenly, her phone pinged, an Instagram DM from Tessa Cross. Katrina raised an eyebrow and tapped it open. "I owe you a real apology. In person. Tomorrow morning. Coffee? My treat." Katrina stared at the screen. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Let's see if you mean it. If someone deeply insulted you in public, but came to apologize in private, would you accept?" The next morning, in a small cafe just off the strip, Tessa waited nervously. No makeup, hoodie head low, Katrina entered. Tall, powerful, graceful. She sat across from her, arms folded. Tessa looked up. "I was wrong." Katrina said nothing. Tessa took a breath. "What I said at the weigh-in wasn't just disrespectful. It was racist and arrogant and cruel. I thought I was better than you." Katrina still didn't speak. Tessa continued, "You didn't just beat me. You exposed what I was missing. Character, grace, control." Finally, Katrina leaned forward. Her voice was soft but sharp. "Do you know why I offered my hand in the first place?" Tessa shook her head. "Because I fight people. Not beneath them. I fight with honor. I wanted you to rise with me, but you spat on that." Tessa looked down. "I'm sorry," Katrina sighed. "You don't owe me that. You owe it to every woman you made feel small, to every girl who heard your words and thought, maybe I'm not enough." Tessa nodded. "Then let me make it right." 2 weeks later, the UFC released an unexpected video. It opened with Tessa sitting in a plain chair, no lights, no glamour. She looked directly into the camera. There's a video of me refusing to shake Katrina Moore's hand. And it's painful to watch, because it's a reflection of who I was, entitled, blind, and full of ignorance. But what Katrina showed the world was who I want to be. The video cut to footage of their fight, the knockout, the helping hand, and Katrina's calm strength. Tessa's voice continued, "This isn't about PR, this is about growth. And I'll spend every day earning back the respect I lost." The comments were mixed, but many praised her honesty. And when Katrina reshared it on her profile with the caption, "Growth begins with truth," the internet paused. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance if they truly own their mistakes? By month's end, Tessa and Katrina appeared on a podcast together. Side by side, they talked about race, about sportsmanship, about redemption, and when the host asked, "Could you two ever fight again?" they laughed. Tessa said, "Not unless she lets me start with a head start." Katrina grinned. She learned her lesson. The arena lights were just as bright, the crowd maybe even louder, but the energy was different. Gone was the bitterness. Gone was the tension. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. Tessa Cross and Katrina Moore were scheduled for a rematch, but this time both women walked into the octagon with their heads high, not out of pride, but from peace. Katrina, now a reigning champion, had defended her title twice since their first bout. She'd become the face of not only women's MMA, but of strength, grace, and resilience across the sports world. Tessa, meanwhile, had done the work. She spoke at high schools. admitted her past, donated fight winnings to underprivileged youth programs. She didn't run from her mistake. She rebuilt herself through it. Now they stood across from each other once again, and when the ref motioned for the glove touch, they touched. No tension, no grudge. Just the silent agreement. Let the best woman win. Question for the audience. Have you ever turned a bitter rivalry into mutual respect? Could you face someone again, not to win but to grow? The bell rang. But this wasn't the wild, emotional clash of last time. Both women were composed, sharper, better. Tessa's footwork had improved. She picked her shots carefully, not with ego but with precision. Katrina moved like a queen in her kingdom, calm, calculating, wise. The crowd watched in awe. They weren't just seeing a fight. They were seeing a story come full circle. Each jab, each dodge, each clinch, it all told a tale of two women who had learned, fallen, and risen in front of millions. Halfway through the round, Katrina smiled. Between exchanges, Tessa smirked back. They were pushing each other and loving it. In the second round, Katrina landed a clean body kick, and Tessa stumbled, but she didn't fall. Instead, she looked up and grinned. Still hits like a truck. Katrina nodded, still standing though. Their conversation mid-fight had the crowd laughing, cheering, not for one fighter over the other, but for both. Commentators couldn't stop talking. This isn't a fight, it's a celebration. What a transformation, especially for Tessa. Cross, this sport needed a moment like this. When someone you once disliked becomes someone you admire, how do you deal with that shift in your heart? As the fight wore on, both women began to slow. Sweat poured, breathing grew heavier, but neither backed down. By the end of the third round, they'd traded heavy shots, landed slick takedowns, and tested each other in every way. When the bell rang, they both stood in the center of the cage, not raising hands, not taunting. Just nodding, acknowledging the war, acknowledging the growth. Back in their corners, their coaches wiped blood and whispered praise. "You did more than win tonight," Katrina's coach said. "You changed how people view this sport." Tessa's corner said, "No matter what the scorecard says, this is the proudest we've ever been." Round 4, the last one, and no one knew who was ahead. They traded evenly, powerful punches, brilliant grapples, stunning reversals. It was the kind of round that left fans breathless. With 10 seconds left, they ended up in a clinch. Neither threw a punch. They just held on, eyes locked. The bell rang, fight over. The crowd erupted in a standing ovation, but neither woman lifted her hands. They embraced, tight, emotional, and in that hug, years of pain, judgment, triumph, and transformation passed between them. Have you ever been in a moment where words couldn't capture what you'd just lived through? The announcer walked into. The cage buffer's voice boomed. Judge 1 scores the bout. 48-47, more Judge 2, 48-47, cross Judge 3, 48-47 for the winner, by split decision. The pause was eternal. Katrina Moore, the crowd cheered. But there was no jumping, no wild celebration. Tessa grabbed Katrina's arm and raised it herself. Katrina leaned in and whispered something, into Tessa's ear. Tessa nodded, eyes glossy, then grabbed a mic. "Last year I disrespected a woman I didn't understand. I saw strength and mistook it for arrogance. I saw beauty and assumed it came with vanity. I saw her color and let my ignorance speak for me. But this woman right here, she beat me twice, once with her fists and once with her grace. And I'm telling you now, it's not just Katrina Moore we should respect. It's every woman who's ever been doubted, dismissed, or disrespected just for existing." Katrina stepped up. The crowd hushed again. Katrina's final words: "I didn't come here tonight to prove I'm better. I came here to prove we can be more than rivals, more than headlines, more than stereotypes." Then she looked directly into the camera. "To every black girl watching, you don't have to become loud to be seen, or angry to be heard. Your power is already there. You just have to show up and own it." That fight was later inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, not just for the skill but for the impact. A framed image of Katrina and Tessa embracing now hangs at the UFC headquarters under a plaque that reads, "Respect isn't given, it's earned, and sometimes it's shared." The sport changed, the world listened, and two women who started as enemies ended up building something bigger than both of them, a legacy. Do you believe even the deepest conflict can become the root of the greatest change?